Okie dokie. So if you've ever been playing Dune Awakening, you have probably been, at least once, utterly molested by a heavy shield unit that downed you over and over and over while you tried to deal with multiple other enemies. And while I firmly believe that you should channel your inner rat self and snipe enemies safely from a distance, it's not always an option. As such, I'm here to talk to you today about armor mitigation, damage reduction, how to stop fucking dying. Because there are people out there that are recommending you armor sets that don't actually have a fucking clue about how armor works. So to start, let's talk about how armor works. Armor itself is calculated by taking the armor value sum total of all your pieces, and then if you've played Remnant and watched my Remnant videos, this equation is going to be astoundingly similar, and you're probably going to laugh, but instead of Remnant where it's armor divided by armor plus 200, in this game it is armor divided by armor plus 500. It is an incredibly simple equation to take your armor and turn it into a DR value. However, this DR value is not the end-all be-all of everything, because there are multiple other sources of damage reduction that you can obtain through your armor, perks, and all the above. But why is damage reduction important? Let's say that you have 100 health. If you have 100 health, and now you have 50% damage reduction, or armor mitigation in this case, now that means it will take twice as much damage to kill you. So you go from 100 health to 200 effective health, which going forward we will call EHP. Now let's say you have 80% damage reduction. That means it will take 5 times as much to kill you, and instead of going from 100 to 200, you now go from 100 to 500. The higher your damage reduction goes, the more your HP scales exponentially. It is not a small difference. It is massive. Every percent of damage reduction that you can obtain in this game becomes more valuable than the last. Now, armor does have diminishing returns in terms of how much armor turns into how much damage reduction, but please do not let that fool you. Do not let others convince you to make that mean that armor isn't valuable past a certain point, because that will be a load of horseshit. Until we get heavy enough armor that we can fat roll like Dark Souls, I will not be satisfied. When it comes to other sources of damage reduction, and again, if you've watched my Remnant 2 videos, you're probably gonna laugh. It's the same fucking damage reduction equation from Remnant 2 in terms of how armor DR and standard DR work together. So if you want to get your total equation for everything, it would be 1 minus your armor DR times 1 minus blade mitigation, okay? Times 1 minus whatever other damage reduction sources are available. So if you're taking a blade attack, that would obviously be blade mitigation. If you're taking a light dart attack, that would obviously be light dart mitigation, so on and so forth. Whatever attack you are taking, take the relevant damage reduction associated with that type and apply it as another multiplier against your armor mitigation. The exception to this would be non-physical type attacks, so poison, energy, fire, all that shit. Your armor mitigation won't take place there anymore, and it will just be whatever mitigations you have from your armor. And since they start out really low, and it's kind of hard to stockpile a lot of it, it's not as good. So while it may be tempting to spec purely into fire mitigation amidst all your different gear pieces, just to counter the flamethrower guys, because they can suck my balls, frankly, it is not actually worth it, and we're going to talk about why. There are some people out there that are going to tell you to mix and match your armor, like this guy. I kind of wanted to die watching that. That guy in particular will tell you to take a mix of heavy and scout armor. And that seems to be the general consensus. I'm here to tell you that is wrong. And before we get into why that guy is batshit, I do want to talk about another common misunderstanding, because people think that armor affects your shields. It does not. When it comes to shields, the amount of damage someone can deal to your shield converts into a power amount that is drained from your shield. But if you go and have someone shoot your shield a whole bunch, it doesn't actually matter if you're armored or not. The amount of damage that they deal will require the same drain on your shield. Damage reduction does not, in any capacity, modify your shields. A lot, like, very common thing that these guys are saying is something like, shields then deal with what comes after your damage reduction. No, that's horseshit. Shields don't care about your DR at all. Shields only care about your shield recharge rate and your power pool, because your power pool from your power pack actually determines how expansive your shields will become. So if anyone has ever showcased their quote-unquote build to you in a video by sitting there standing as guys shoot them and their shields are on, they completely fucking debated you, or they have no clue what the fuck they were talking about. I will say this again and again and again. Shields do not give a fuck what your armor is. And then on a final note, how do penetrating shield effects function? I didn't test everything available in the game for this, but when it comes to Drill Shot, which is a shield penetrating shotgun, shield penetrating effects cannot get headshots. They are always considered body shots. So a drill shot will still do the exact same amount of damage that it would have normally if you shoot through a shield, but do note that it can only be considered a body shot. And that body shot is still subject to the same damage mitigations, all that stuff. If you want to understand how to calculate exactly how much damage you'll deal in terms of damage bonuses working with damage reduction, you can go watch my trooper video, and I talk about how all the skill perks work there in terms of how to calculate your damage. And then using this video as well with the damage reduction, you should be able to figure out how much damage you're going to deal to any given person based on what they're wearing. Circling back to Shucklefuck's A and B, when it comes to the mixed set the guy was telling you to use, he wanted you to use the Syndicate unique helmet, the Sentinel chest and pants, and then the Mercenary Scout gloves and pants. The sum total of his armor there turns out to 976. The equivalent to armor mitigation would be 66.12%. The problem with this is you're trying to become a jack of all trades, and in trying to be prepared for everything by splitting up your mitigations everywhere, you are now prepared for nothing. Circling back to EHP, I have created the EHP for every damage type that is available. And then I've also averaged it, if you really want to talk about being a jack of all trades. But when it comes to EHP, you take your total health, and then you divide it by 1 minus your total DR value. So if you have 70 DR, that would be your total health divided by 30%, or 0.3. So for each of these, I summed up all of the resistance bonuses or mitigation bonuses of each damage type provided by the armor, and then I divided an assumed HP of 200, because most of you are going to have 200 plus HP with your Bene Gesserit perks and all that shit. And then I take that 200 HP divided by 1 minus the total mitigation bonus, and these are all the EHPs. So in terms of energy, you're only getting 10 more health by doing this. Fire, you're getting 20 more health. Poison, you're getting 17 more health. Blade, you are getting up to 621. On light dart damage, you're getting up to 656. And then on heavy dart damage, you're getting up to 656 as well, with concussion being 250. Alternatively, though, what you can do instead of mixing and matching is just committing to one or the other, light or heavy. And odds are, you're going to be just fine while also being significantly more tanky to whatever you have a problem with. So if you have a problem with blades, build into light armor and you will have more blade EHP than anything this guy could have managed to put together. Because now I'll scroll down to the blade light armor bit. Instead of having the 621 EHP against blades, if you commit to the scout armor, which is just the Syndicate set, I'm only using that set as a comparison specifically because he used the head from that, you now have 857 EHP against blade. In my experience, most people just have a problem with one or the other. I personally have a harder time dealing with the melee people because I'm a rat bastard who snipes people from a distance. Dart damage is a non-fucking issue for me. I don't give a fuck about that. So I consider using the light armor so that way I get crazy high blade mitigation while also achieving a higher average EHP across the spectrum of damage types. And then if you commit to the full heavy armor, if we do the full Sentinel set, which again is only being used in this comparison purely because that was what they used in part of their mix and match. If you commit to the full Sentinel set, you have 875 EHP against light and heavy damage, while you have 538 blade mitigation, which is not nearly as bad as you think. You need to remember that the armor mitigation of what you have from your pieces, separate from the negative blade resistance that you're being provided with, still works in conjunction. So it's not as if you're taking more damage from blades just from taking a heavy set. That is a lie. A lot of people are debating you with this. You still get a shit ton of EHP from your armor, which is 1251, and then that elevated EHP then gets the penalty from blade mitigation. So please do not interpret heavy armor to mean that you are fucked by blades. You're not. You're still gonna get really good blade EHP. You're just gonna get way better light and heavy dart EHP as well. In conclusion, shields don't care about your armor, ever. Shield penetrating effects do. If you want to live, you should probably chunk up with the fattest armor you can find against whichever type you have a harder time with. If that's blades, then take light armor, and you will get more blade EHP than anything else. If it's darts, then take heavy armor. Heavy armor in general is the best. Do not mix and match, commit to a full fucking set. And then hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know down below. I spent the better part of a year on Remnant 2 builds, creating damage reduction builds that could trivialize the fuck out of the game. Can we get to that level of EHP in this game? No, but am I gonna be able to answer any questions you have about it? Absolutely, so please shoot away.